So you bought tickets to the new Odyssey movie. You sit down in the dark and suddenly realize you have absolutely no idea who any of these dudes in sandals are. That is because the Odyssey is actually a sequel to a totally different massive war. It all started because three goddesses got super petty over a golden apple that said, "For the hottest." A guy named Paris had to judge the beauty contest and picked the goddess who bribed him with the most beautiful woman on earth. The only problem was that this woman was already married to a really angry Greek king. So the Greeks packed up 1,000 ships and sailed to Troy to get her back by force. They fought outside the city walls for 10 long years, and honestly everyone was getting totally sick of it. Enter our main guy Odysseus, who comes up with the absolute sneakiest plan ever. He tells his army to build a huge wooden horse and hide inside it while the rest of the guys pretend to go home. The Trojans thought it was a peace prize and dragged it right into their heavily guarded city. That night Odysseus and the boys hopped out and completely destroyed the entire city. The war was finally over and Odysseus was feeling like the absolute man of the hour. All he had to do was sail back to his wife in Ithaca, which should have taken maybe 2 weeks tops. Instead, it took him 10 awful years, and literally his entire crew died except him. Let me explain exactly how he messed up so badly, so you do not look stupid while watching the movie. First, they stopped at an island to rob some locals, but they stayed way too long having a beach party. The locals called for backup and chased them off the beach, proving Odysseus makes terrible choices. Then a massive storm blew them completely off the map into unknown magical waters. They landed on the island of the Lotus Eaters, where the local food makes you forget your entire life. Odysseus literally had to drag his crying friends back to the boat and tie them to the wooden benches. Next, they found an island with a giant cave filled with massive blocks of cheese and milk. They just walked right in and started eating someone else's groceries without even asking. The owner came home, and it turned out to be a giant cyclops named Polyphemus who was extremely not happy. He trapped them inside the cave by rolling a massive rock in front of the door that they could not move. He also ate 2 crew members for dinner, which really ruined the vacation vibe. Odysseus knew they could not kill him in his sleep because they needed him alive to move the heavy door rock. So he offered the giant a bunch of really strong magic wine to wash down his meal. The giant got super dizzy and asked Odysseus what his name was so he could thank him. Odysseus lied and said his name was Nobody, which is basically the oldest dad joke in history. The giant passed out hard, and the crew took a giant flaming wooden stick from the fire. They poked his only eye out, making him completely blind and furious. The giant woke up screaming for his friends, yelling that nobody was hurting him. His friends thought he was just having a bad dream and literally walked away. The next morning, the crew escaped by hiding underneath the giant's fluffy sheep as they walked outside to eat grass. They made it to the boat, but Odysseus just had to be annoying and ruin everything. He yelled his real name and home address at the giant to brag about how smart he was. This was a massive mistake because the giant's dad was Poseidon, the god of the ocean. Poseidon put a massive curse on Odysseus, swearing he would never get home easily. The ocean got super dangerous immediately, but they found a floating island made entirely of bronze. The god of the winds lived there and gave Odysseus a bag holding all the bad storm winds in the world. He said if you keep this bag closed, you will sail completely straight home to Ithaca. They could actually see their hometown, but Odysseus decided to take a nap at the worst possible time. The crew thought he was hiding gold in the bag and decided to open it while he snored. All the storm winds exploded out at once and blew them all the way back to where they started. The wind god refused to help them again because they were clearly cursed by the universe. Next, they found an island of giant cannibals who threw huge rocks and destroyed almost all of their ships. Only Odysseus and his main ship managed to escape that complete disaster. They landed on a new spooky island and sent half the guys to look around for snacks. They met a beautiful witch named Circe who offered them a huge magical dinner inside her house. As soon as they ate the food, she used a magic wand to turn them all into literal farm pigs. A messenger god stopped Odysseus on his way there and gave him a magic plant to eat. The plant made him completely immune to her magic, so she could not turn him into bacon. He pulled his sword on her and forced her to turn his friends back into regular humans. They ended up staying there for a whole year, just chilling on her couch before she told them how to leave. She said they had to go to the literal underworld to ask a dead ghost for directions home. Odysseus literally had to pour sheep blood into a hole to attract the ghosts. A blind dead prophet drank the blood and told him exactly what not to do on the rest of the trip. The first big problem was the sirens who sing beautiful songs that make sailors purposely crash their ships. Odysseus made all his men shove balls of thick beeswax into their ears so they could not hear a thing. But he wanted to hear the song himself, so he had them tie him to the wooden pole in the middle of the boat. They survived and immediately had to sail through a narrow passage between two terrible monsters. On one side was Scylla, a giant monster with 6 heads who loves to eat crunchy sailors. On the other side was Charybdis, a giant watery whirlpool that swallows whole ships in one gulp. Odysseus chose the cliff side and lost 6 of his best guys just to get past the trap. They were starving to death and landed on an island owned by the sun god, which had special magic cows. The dead ghost had specifically told them under absolutely no circumstances should they touch those cows. But Odysseus fell asleep again, and his crew immediately started grilling the forbidden magical beef. The sun god threw a massive tantrum, and the king of the gods threw a lightning bolt straight at their ship. The entire ship was destroyed, and every single crew member drowned except for our guy Odysseus. He floated on a piece of trash for over a week until he washed up half dead on another island. This island belonged to a sea nymph named Calypso who thought he was incredibly cute. She forced him to be her boyfriend and trapped him on that island for 7 straight years. He just sat on the beach crying every single day until the gods finally forced her to let him go. He built a terrible raft and eventually found a friendly kingdom that finally gave him a real ride home. When he finally got back to Ithaca, 20 years had passed, and things at his house were terrible. Over 100 random guys had moved into his house, trying to force his wife Penelope to marry one of them. His wife had been stalling them for years by pretending to knit a giant blanket she never finished. Odysseus knew he could not just walk in alone, so a goddess disguised him as an ugly homeless beggar. He snuck into his own house and watched these jerks eat his food and insult him right to his face. His wife finally set up a test, saying she would marry anyone who could shoot her missing husband's giant heavy bow. All the rude guys tried to pull the bowstring back, but they were way too weak to even bend the wood. The old beggar asked to try, and all the guys laughed until he strung the bow perfectly on the very first try. He shot the arrow perfectly through 12 axes and then threw off his disguise looking totally furious. He locked the doors, and he and his son completely destroyed all the guys who tried to steal his wife and his house. He finally proved who he was to his wife, and they got their house back after cleaning up the mess. So when you sit down in the theater with your popcorn, remember that this grand hero is actually a walking disaster. If you like this breakdown, drop a like and subscribe before you go watch the movie so you do not miss the next video.